Jeremy Taylor, a famous jurist, says, a herd of wolves is quieter and more at one than so many men, unless they all have one reason in them or one power over them. What this means is, if we compare a pack of wolves and a group of people, there is a possibility that the pack of wolves stay united because they may have a common purpose. It may be to hunt compared to the human beings. Sociologists have called man as a social animal. Man is not only a social animal, he is also a selfish animal. Animals only fight for food, territory, or to attract the opposite gender. Human beings not only fight for food, territory, or to attract the opposite gender, they also fight on the basis of caste, religion, creed, race, color, your favorite cricket team. It does not matter. Human beings will always fight against each other. So this behavior, criminal behavior, something which is prohibited by the society, is not a new phenomenon. Crime is not a new phenomenon. Crime has always existed since the very origin of mankind. Crime has been committed and is known to man since the very origin of civilization. Now, that being said, who will regulate this criminal behavior? Who will control these criminal tendencies? It is the authority. It is the duty of the authority, whether it is a tribal chief in a small tribe or a king back in the old days, monarchy, or the state or the government. It is the duty of the authority to regulate the behavior of the people. It is the duty of the authority to maintain peace in society. How is this done? This is done by way of punishment. The state uses punishment as a means to maintain law and order in society. So, crime is inevitable. It can never be avoided. However, it can be regulated. So, the state uses punishment as a means to control or regulate criminal tendencies in the members of the society. We have established this. Unfortunately, crime is part of human society. Punishment is also part of human society. Both go together. Crime is inevitable, punishment is necessary. We have established this fact. Now, many questions arises. If this is true, if crime is inevitable and if punishment is necessary, many questions arises. What type of punishment needs to be given? What is the nature of the punishment? What is the goal of the punishment? To whom punishment is to be given and to whom punishment is not to be given? See, these all questions are relevant. Why? Because the same punishment cannot be given to all the criminals. Think about this. There are different types of criminals. Some of them may be habitual criminals. Some of them may be first time offenders. Some of them may be juveniles. Some of them may be insane. Some of them may have committed in the spur of the moment. So, same punishment cannot be given to all the criminals. So, what is the proper punishment? This question arises. So, there is a science which deals with the scientific study of punishments. That science is called penology. Penology is derived from the Latin terms peona. What is that? Peona? Madonna? Vasgodagamai. No, peona. But the point is, peona, punishments plus logia, that is study. So literal meaning of the term penology is the study of punishments. It was coined for the very first time by Francis Lieber in 1834. Francis Lieber was a German American political thinker, and he was a writer on prison reforms. He was the first person who coined the term penology. For that very reason, and because of his contribution to prison reforms, he is considered as the father of penology. So, what you should get out from this video is, what is penology? Penology is the scientific study of punishments. I mean, why not? It is true that punishment is one of the ways in which the state will regulate human behavior. But listen to this. Back in the old days, it was believed that harsh, cruel, inhuman punishment was the solution to the problem of criminal behavior. So, for more than 200 offenses, capital punishment or death sentence was awarded. It is very evident in the Draconian Code, which was written by Draco. Supposedly, it is written in blood, and the Bloody Code in the 18th and 19th century England. Draconian Code is of Greece. So, in these codes, the common punishment for most of the offenses was death penalty, because it was believed that harsher the punishment, it will deter potential offenders from committing the crime. More harsh the punishment, people will be scared to commit the crimes. That was the belief. But unfortunately, the data shows that crime rates did not reduce. Even though the punishments were harsher, even though the punishments were inhuman, the crime rates did not reduce. So, what to do? That is why this requires a scientific study on punishments. What is the proper punishment to be imposed on the offender? Like I said, all the criminals cannot be treated alike. There are juveniles, that is minors, insane people, first time offenders, hardened criminals. Criminals have to be differentiated. The same punishment cannot be given to all the offenders. For instance, let us say there are two patients, a diabetic patient and a TB patient. Can the same medicine be given to both of these patients? No. For diabetes, the doctor may prescribe Gemer Forte or some other medicine. For tuberculosis, the doctor may prescribe Rifampicin or some medicine is there. So the same medicine cannot be given to both the patients. Similarly, how is that the same punishment can be given to all the criminals? So the point here is, what is the age of the criminal? What is his mentality? What is his background? For what reason he has committed the crime? And does he have any regrets or not? So these mitigating and aggravating circumstances should be taken into consideration. That is when proper punishment can be given. In the same way, proper medicine will be given to the patient. So, penology is essential in order to understand what is the proper punishment for this particular crime. Penology is most important for the judges and the advocates in order to prevent further criminal behavior or to deter potential offenders, because they have to know what is the appropriate punishment for in order to punish this offender. Or some may say, sir, in IPC only it is given now. Or for murder, the death sentence or life imprisonment. For theft, this is the punishment. No, no, no. Please understand, maximum punishment and minimum punishment will be prescribed in the IPC. It is left to the discretion of the judge whether to give maximum punishment or minimum punishment. How will he exercise that discretion? If he has a proper understanding of penology, if he knows what is the purpose of punishment, what are the factors to be considered. So, penology is essential for judges and advocates in order to deter potential criminals and to prevent further crimes. Just as IPC is very important and other penal acts, similarly, penology is also very much necessary in order to find out what is the proper punishment for the offender. The origin of penology can be understood after explaining the three main schools: the pre-classical school, the classical school, and the neoclassical school. Please know that penology as a separate science is only 2.5 centuries old. It was still considered as part of criminology, and even to this day, in some ways, it is considered part of criminology. So, we will break down each of the schools. The first school is the pre-classical school. The proponents of the pre-classical school believed in one principle: harsher the punishment, it will discourage the criminals from committing further crimes. So, for this reason, most of the offences, the punishment was death penalty or cruel, inhuman treatment was given to the offenders. As we have seen in many of the codes, for more than 200 offences, death penalty was the common punishment. So that was their belief. And the proponents of this school believed in one man. He was Saint Thomas Aquinas, who represented the church, which enjoyed a dominant position at the time. He claimed that people commit crimes not because they have ill will, not because they have some financial gain or no. No. People commit crimes because they were possessed by demons and evil spirits at the time. So if the judge asks, why have you murdered your own family members? The accused would say, my lord, I was possessed by the demon himself. Satan himself possessed me, my lord. Forgive me. So for this reason, many sacrifices were performed, exorcisms were performed in the name of God, in the name of the church. That was Saint Thomas Aquinas. This theory is called demonological theory. The proponents of pre-classical school believed this. And in other cases, death penalty. Now, the second school is the classical school. After the 17th century, after that time, the concept of human rights was evolving, and people started to inquire, why is that even though the punishments were harsher, the crime rates did not reduce? And one very important person, that is Cesare Beccaria. Once again, I'll repeat, Cesare Beccaria. He wrote an essay on crime and punishment, which shook the very foundation of punishments. It is only because of his efforts the classical school was established. The proponents of the classical school, headed by Cesare, Beccaria, Jeremy Bentham, and many others, they believe in 5 ideas. Number one, free will. That means people choose to behave in a particular way and they are responsible for their actions. People commit crimes not because they are possessed by some demon or evil spirit, because they chose to do so. Everybody exercises their own free will, not under the control of any some supernatural entity. So, free will. Number two, idea number two, hedonism. Hedonism means every man includes woman, so every man is motivated by two factors, pleasure and pain. Man is very calculative. If he decides to do something, he will calculate whether this action gives me pleasure or pain according to hedonism. For instance, if an action gives more pleasure than pain, he will do that thing. If something brings more pain than pleasure, he will not do such thing. For instance, a person is walking down the street. There are many apples and oranges in the market. If he decides to steal an apple, he will calculate. If I eat this apple, I will get some amount of pleasure. But the beating I will get from the market people, that will give me more pain than pleasure. So he decides not to steal the apple. So that is hedonism, where man is motivated by two things, pleasure and pain. The proponents of the classical school believe this idea. Idea number three, proportionality of punishment. This means based on the nature of the offense, punishment must be given. For pickpocketing, or for stealing some small item, or for lying, or for cheating, death penalty cannot be awarded. That is not proportionate. That was done during the 17th century, during the pre-classical era, where death penalty was common for most of the offenses. This school says proportionality of punishment. The punishment must be the same for the offense that has been committed. Very similar to eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, etc. So, proportionality of punishment. Idea number four, human rights. Every person has basic human rights. These rights arise from the fact that he is born as a human being. There is no need for a law, there is no need for court to declare those things. Merely because he is a human being, he has these rights, including the offender. Human rights. Idea number five, due process. Due process means the accused will be presumed to be innocent till proven guilty. Just because a person is accused of a crime doesn't necessarily mean he must be punished immediately. The due process of the law must be followed. He has to undergo a trial, then a judge has to decide, then punishment must be given. See, all these noble ideas was propounded for the very first time in the 18th century. All this was headed by Cesare Beccaria in his essay Crime and Punishment. That is why it shook the very foundation of punishments, because people never realized these kind of things. So all these noble ideas came out of the classical school. The neoclassical school was a product of the many limitations of the classical school propounded by Cesare Beccaria. There are many limitations, let's face it. Number one, free will. That is what they said. Everyone chooses to do his acts, including criminal acts. There are many instances where insane people commit the crimes. In one instance, a person cut the head off another person. He was hoping that the next day the person with no head will come looking for his head. So when that insane person committed the crime, he did not exercise free will, or there may be minors, or a person in a state of intoxication or a drug addict may have committed the crime. Where is free will? Secondly, they said hedonism. Everybody calculates the pleasure and pain. Everybody thinks, okay, this will bring that, this will bring that. What about instances where crimes are committed in the spur of the moment? What about those instances? Where is hedonism? What about crimes which are committed out of jealousy or out of in order to take revenge? There is no hedonistic principle there. Thirdly, they were talking about proportionality of punishment. There are many crimes where proportionate punishment cannot be given. Murder, yes, death penalty can be awarded. What about theft? Can you steal back from that person? What about offenses like rape and sexual harassment? Can the same punishment be given back? So, for all the crimes, same punishment or proportionate punishment cannot be given. That is why the neoclassical school was born. The neoclassical school believes in two great principles. Number one, every criminal act is situationally dynamic and individually determined. Once again, I'll repeat, every criminal act is situationally dynamic and individually determined. So, punishments are made much more individualized. Every criminal act is different from the other one. Everything cannot be treated as the same. So, this school believes that every case must be looked in a different manner, taking into consideration what is the age of the offender, what is the motive behind committing the crime, does he regrets doing this after the offense has been committed, what is the financial status, what are his family conditions, what was his state during committing the acts. So all these factors will be considered. Every criminal act will be looked at from an individual point of view. They will never generalize these things. For instance, let us say a person is starving, he is unemployed, and his mother is sick. While he is traveling in the bus, he finds a lady next to him, and she has all the ornaments, a lot of cash, and she is talking on the phone. Because of his hunger, because his mother is sick, he steals money from the purse, he tries to run away, and ultimately gets caught. Now, if it was the pre-classical school, death sentence will be awarded to him. If it is the classical school, proportionate punishment. He already has no money. How can he award the same punishment? So that is why neoclassical school says for this type of criminals, harsh punishment will not be given. Maybe he will be warned, or maybe 3 months imprisonment. So neoclassical school basically believes that crime is situationally dynamic. That means it is different and it is individually determined. Every individual case they will look into. The second principle the neoclassical school believes is classification of the offenders. This is very important, and even to this day this principle is followed in all the prisons. If you visit the central prison, you will see all the prisoners are classified. Male and female, they are classified. Juveniles, that is the minors, and the adult prisoners are classified. Under trial prisoners and convicted prisoners are classified. This is done because if we let all these people together, they will come up with some master plan A person who is not a criminal will become a criminal in after going to jail. And also, men and women prisoners must be kept separate for obvious reasons. Already they are criminals, so that is why. So that is the second principle the neoclassical school believes. So this is briefly about the origin of penology. In the next video, we will be analyzing much more concepts. Okay. Thank you. Take care. Peace.